Sam, episode 2, I'm going to recap the 4 pillars that we're going to build this whole podcast on. We're going to talk mindset, we're going to talk marketing, leadership, and finances. Let's start this episode. Let's start our first official episode with a mindset episode. And I think a mindset that's probably a great place to start, because I think that's where a lot of us get stuck at the very first hurdle, is the mindset that real success, like getting the things that I want, whatever that looks like. So maybe that's time for a relationship or hobbies, or just work not being something that I dread, or having enough money so that that's not the thing that dominates all my decision making. That's sort of Instagram success almost.
Yeah.
That's for other people. That's for more talented people or smarter people or luckier people or people who are born in families with money, 100 excuses, but not me. I don't necessarily deserve that in my life. I'm Dr. Hubert Temstra, veterinarian, former business owner, and host of the Vet Wealth podcast. And you are listening to the Veterinary Business Accelerator, the podcast that supports and educates you, the vet business owner, to create value, have fun, and make money. Our coach on this adventure is Dr. Sam Bowden, veterinarian, author, and the founder of the Accelerate Practice Academy. Sam has helped hundreds of practice owners to reclaim their time, boost their profits, and build businesses that don't depend on them 24/7. And in this episode, we'll address that question: why you might feel, possibly subconsciously, that you don't deserve success, and what to do about it. How do we change that? How do we go from that to somebody who, like you said, Sam, you expect good shit to happen to you?
Yeah. I think, and I summarize it, is called giving yourself permission to be successful. I'll start with a story. A guy who mentored me way back, my very first mentor. And I asked the question, I said, how do you become, and when we're talking about success, I was talking about wealth here. How do you become wealthy? And he looked at me, paused, and said, simply decide. I went, that seems a bit simple. He said, simply decide that you're going to be wealthy. You don't know how to, you don't deserve it, it's not that you've earned it at this point in time, but until you decide it's for you, then it's not for you. And that was a pivotal change point in my mindset around understanding that a lot of us are stopping getting the things we want because down deep, we don't believe that they're for us. So let's start by defining my definition of successful, because I think we see the Instagram success and I look at and I generally go, I actually don't think that fit my parameter of success. So I have 5 areas of wealth we talk about. And I talk about, number one is, and I think the top one is health wealth, because if you don't have health, you got nothing. And they say health is a wealth you don't know you have until you don't have it. Number 2 is relationship wealth. And I'm actually putting these in order of what I see as importance. Number 2 is relationship wealth, because if you don't have someone to share this roller coaster, this incredible experience of life with, it's kind of boring and it's a bit soulless. The third one, of course, is let's talk dollars. Purpose of money is to get a life, give a life. I call them options tickets. Just allows us to have some options. So that's the third area of wealth. The fourth one is fulfillment. Am I feeling that I'm loving what I'm doing? Because you can make lots of money, but really not enjoy what you're doing. And it's kind of soulless. And number 5, I call it time wealth. And time is, we all have the same amount of time. What we do with that time is obviously quite dependent on the individual. And having time to be balanced and enjoy the other areas of your life that's not just work, I see as a wealth. So I was thinking about success, thinking about this episode, and I said, well, Sam, what is it that you do? And I thought, if I had to summarize it, it would be creating an extraordinary life for myself and others. And when I think about extraordinary, I think about those balance points, because I can always find someone that's wealthier. I can always find someone that's healthier and fitter. I can always find someone who's got better relationships, or always find someone who's got more time. And of course, I can always probably find someone who's more fulfilled. Meditate for 1,000 years. But the reality is I go, who's got the balance of all of those? And I look at that and go, to me, that's going to give me an extraordinary life. And I remember back when I had that, my first mentor said, how did you decide to become wealthy? The reason that I wanted to decide that that was part of my life that I wanted to have was because he said the purpose of wealth is to get a life and give a life. So have a life for yourself, create an extraordinary life for yourself, and help some others. And I include a third thing around wealth, if talking financials, is have a life, give a life, and invest for life. So you're kind of investing back to passive income, so it then overtakes what you earn out of your vet practice. And the throwaway line was this, but I really like it. Why would you bother being financially successful? So you can do what you want, when you want, with who you want. What you want, when you want, with who you want. And that just resonated with me at a really deep level because, I love doing fun stuff. Like on the weekend, some mates rang me up last weekend, literally 2 days, and said, hey, we're going to go and surf this swell that's on Lady Elliot Island, which for listeners is about 2.5 hours in a boat off the coast of Queensland. It's an isolated place. It's beautiful. No one goes there to surf. And he'd just been following the charts and said, this is once in a lifetime kind of thing. Let's go. So we go and surf this place. And we'd asked a few people, hey, do you want to go? And no, they couldn't come because, they got to work and this and that. So they didn't have that freedom to have the experience. I look at that and go, that's a wealth for me. So I'm sort of framing up as...
Can I just point out that you didn't ask me, and I think I would have had the time. Thank you, Sam.
Duly noted, Hubert. Duly noted. It turned into one of those, what we call that day. Remember that day? And, we surfed it. Then we went fishing. We were catching fish left, right, and center, and the spear diving and, spearing fish. And, left at 4 a.m, got back at 7 p.m, couldn't scratch ourselves, in a bed, and just go, what a ripper. I'm really living an extraordinary life. So I'm kind of framing up, I think, to our listeners to what is an extraordinary life? Because I think we get stuck as it's a successful financial business. And I reckon that is a part of the pie, but not a big part of the pie.
Yeah, your 5 things that define success, when I look at them in the way I think about it, and maybe it's a reflection of where I am in my career journey, but they're intimately tied. And I almost feel like time is the key ingredient because you can't have health and you can't have good relationships. And fulfillment can be just the work, but health and relationships, you need time to do that. If you're just stuck in the office working, well, that's not going to happen. Your relationships are going to be shite if all you do is spend your days at the vet practice. And then how do you get time? Well, you need to have enough money to buy yourself time in a way, or so that you're not stuck at work because you have scrambling just to meet your expenses. So they definitely link to each other. And again, I think and we're not talking money today, but that is, to me, where the money piece comes in. It is to buy me time so that I can do what I want, when I want, with who I want, exactly as you say.
Yeah, well, the money is options tickets. It doesn't make you better, worse, whatever. It just gives you more options. A little thing around money, it'll just make you more of whatever you already are. So if you're a really nice person, generous with a little bit of money, you'll be really generous with lots. If you're an ass with a bit of money, you just become super ass when you get lots of money. So it's just it has a multiplication effect. That's fascinating when you watch it. Fascinating.
So how do we cultivate that mindset?
So first of all is sort of an awareness. A lot of people, I know when I first went through this process, if you talk about, okay, I want to have 2 months a year off, what will come up is a belief. 2 months a year off, you can't do that, or I couldn't do that. So generally what you find, if you start having a look at these 5 areas, and we talked about in the last podcast, get clear on exactly what you want. That's really step 1. It's getting clear on what you want. And step 2 is going, right, I've got to give myself permission that I can actually have it. Now, there's a really big point I want to land here, Hubert. Massive point that I want everyone to get. You don't need to know how. You do not need to know how. Because if you knew how, you'd already have that thing, right? You don't know how. That's okay. But you'll never truly start on the journey, without thinking it's possible or giving yourself permission even just to try. You will get stuck in what I call howitis. How. It's inflammation. It's not actually a word. I just made it up. But from being a vet, itis is the inflammation of how, right? So there's a guy by the name of Buckminster Fuller who was considered, he was a genius, and he studied universal principles for years and years. So and he had this saying, the principles will be revealed upon the decision. And paraphrasing, what he meant is how you do something will only turn up after you've decided to do it. So someone's sitting there going, how do I do something? How do I do something? We'll probably never start the journey. And you'll know this. We often know people who go, I've got a great idea. I've got a great idea. And I'm like, awesome. Show me you've taken the first, second, third step, and then it'll probably get somewhere. But mostly people won't get past the first step of, I want to have 2 months holiday a year, because there's a block, subconscious, which is you can't actually do that. You don't know how. So they think figuring out how is the secret key to getting it, and that's not the key. The key is to simply decide first. The principles, how, will turn up after you've made the decision. And what happens once you've made the decision, ironically, what happens is the next obvious step, which is, there's my first stepping stone. If you think about how do you climb Mount Everest, well, there's a first step, and then you look around and go, well, there's a safe place to put my foot, second step, and so on and so forth. And that's actually how you get there. The person that thinks, how am I map out climbing Mount Everest before you start, you want to have a general idea and go, well, this is best case scenario, but you've actually just got to start. And this is where the giving yourself permission thing is. Most people won't begin this journey because they're just not open to it. So the turning point is once you're clear on what you want and giving yourself permission, what will then come up is all of your beliefs. So I want you to think about drawing a little diagram, and it's like a rectangle. I'm going to do a little model here. We've got a rectangle, and in the middle is Hubert. He's a good-looking chap who apparently can surf, and duly noted. And on the right-hand side, we write down stories. So we have a rectangle, person inside, which represents you as a listener. And on the right-hand side, you write stories or beliefs. Your beliefs or stories, which is what you say about yourself to yourself when you're by yourself. It's a little voice in your head. What happens is it will then drive your feelings. And so you drive feelings down the bottom of the triangle. On the left-hand side, that will then drive behavior. And then up the top, behavior will then drive results. So if ever we want to look at somebody's results and we want to change them, we can't just go straight to change behavior. We have to go all the way back to and go, well, what's the story you're telling yourself? Because we manifest from our stories. We are all creators. We are creating all the time. Whatever you focus on expands. So wherever our focus is the story we're telling ourselves, the more we do that, the more we'll feel that way, which will drive the behavior, which will drive the results. So if you want to know what your stories are at the moment, have a look at your results and go, why have I got the results? What story am I telling myself? So if you are working your butt off 365 a year and you're doing 10 hours a day, the question is why? And it's driven from your story. You actually believe that's what you need to do. And it's not till we start changing these stories that'll question how we feel, which will then drive our behavior.
Can I interrupt you for a second? What you're saying there about the stories and how you shouldn't start with your behaviors. I put this in my newsletter the other day. It's a quote that I read from Anthony DeMello that says, there's only one way out, and that is to get deprogrammed. How do you do that? You have to become aware of the programming. You cannot change by effort of will. You cannot change through ideals. You cannot change through building up new habits. Your behavior may change, but you don't. You only change through awareness and understanding. Otherwise, what you call change is simply moving the furniture around, which I love that last line. Yeah. You're just moving the furniture. You're not really changing anything.
It's like I remember someone sharing the story of identity. So the stories you tell yourself, what drives, you start creating your identity, which is how you see yourself. So I can do this, I can't do this, I'm this sort of person. I'm talking about if someone wanted to give up, let's take, for example, smoking, and you want to change the behavior, which is, the result is I smoke and I get things that associate with smoking. Well, what's doing it? Well, I'm smoking. What's driving the behavior? Well, there's a certain feeling. What's driving the feeling, which is the story. So instead of trying to say, I'm going to stop smoking, the identity of that person is, I am a smoker. In order to change the behavior, the fastest way is, I am not a smoker. I don't smoke. Not I'm a smoker trying to give up, because you're still tied to your identity and it doesn't shift. So when we talk about permission, shifting permissions can be as simple as this: I am a successful practice owner. I am. And I am is the determinant of your identity. So if you ever want to understand someone's results, say, tell me about yourself. And they'll go, well, I am. And off they'll start going through how they see themselves. It's telling you the underlying story. So if you're listening, it might be fascinating if you actually want to start just, instead of just listening to this and going, that's fascinating, if you actually want to start digging in and seeing your identity at the moment. So how will you describe yourself to somebody else? And you'd probably say, I am honest. Then we look at your results. Are you honest? Probably. Would you say, I am a fantastic business owner? And we're going to start bumping into some beliefs there. Now, if you're a really good business owner, you'll probably say, yeah, I'm a great business owner, fantastic business owner. So giving yourself permission starts with shifting this identity that I am successful. So if you want to actually go, how do you reprogram? You come right back down to, well, what are you currently telling yourself? And it'll give the certain results. And then you reprogram.
Okay, we are going to call that one here. I've split this conversation into 2 parts so that it's not a complete information overload for you. Your homework for this one is to get clarity on what success looks like to you. What would your practice and your life look like if everything worked out exactly the way you wanted? Sit down, think about this, write it down. In our next episode, Sam will tell you how to get out of your own way and give yourself permission to achieve the things that you're going to write down in this week's assignment.
Cool. Till next time.